Hi students, welcome back to geology. In this video, we are going to talk about surface water specifically. So as you go through this lecture, I want you to think about how water organizes itself into rivers and drainage systems and how that works on the surface of the earth. So our surface water is any water that is on the surface of the earth. Okay, when we talk about groundwater is water that is below the surface of the earth. Okay, so when snow melts, glaciers melt, or we have precipitation, all of that ends up on the Earth's surface and it is found in storage systems like streams, rivers, lakes, etc. Okay, so anything that's on the surface. In a stream, we have something called a sediment transport system, and this is how streams will move sediment downstream. Okay, so streams are really important for moving sediment to create sedimentary rocks later on. So there's three ways this can happen: in solution, in suspension, and along the bottom of the channel. If it's along the bottom of the channel, it's just kind of rolling and sliding on the bottom of the riverbed. Okay. If it's suspended, it's closer to the density of water, the material is, and it kind of stays suspended in the solution before it kind of settles. Okay, and then there's dissolved load or in solution, which is really, really, really small particles that are dissolved within the water system. All right, as streams move down in elevation, we can look at their stream velocity. So this is going to be highly dependent on gradient, channel smoothness, and the shape and size of the channel. Gradient is one of the biggest factors because the steeper the grade, steeper the hill, the faster the water is going to move. Okay. The other thing is if there's a lot of things in the way for the water to move, so there's no channel smooth, it's not smooth, it's rocky, it's going to be harder for the water to move. If it's nice and smooth, it'll move quickly, which is why we build like our canals out of concrete, because the water can move really easily over that surface and really fast. If the channel is really wide, the water is going to go out horizontally first before it flows downstream. If it's narrow, there's not extra space for the water to go. It's just going to go straight down. So maximum velocity of a stream is always the center point, and that maximum velocity becomes greater if there is a smaller, narrower channel. When we talk about streams, we talk about discharge. So this is what the output at the end or the mouth of the river would be. We measure that in cubic feet per second. And this is a list of the world's 10 largest rivers by discharge. The Amazon being much more discharged than really any other river on Earth at 7.5 million cubic feet per second. That is a lot of water coming out of that river. The Congo is still in the millions, but it's pretty far behind. It's a fraction of what the Amazon River puts out. And then if you look all the way down there, we do have the Mississippi on the list at 611,000 cubic feet per second. So there's a couple of stream types. We have braided streams and meandering streams. Braided streams are streams that deposit sediment on the base of the channels and choke the channels, forcing them to split. So essentially there's a really large sediment load available. This happens a lot when snow and glaciers are melting, because there's sediment wrapped up in there as well. As things melt, water just kind of finds the easiest path, and there's a lot of choke points and things start splitting. Okay, so that's a braided stream. A meandering stream is a stream that flow in a series of bends. So it really just meanders through the landscape kind of like a snake. Okay, so looking at braided streams a little closer, again, these consist of really small, narrow channels that are divided and kind of form this network or this braid. If you've ever seen like what a braid looks like in hair, you just kind of alternate and they all cross and intersect. And that's what the river system looks like with a braided stream. Again, there's a high sediment load available, and so there hasn't been a clear channel established like we see with our meandering streams. This is a single channel that winds like a snake through the landscape. This picture happens to be Horseshoe Bend along the Colorado River in the Grand Canyon. So it takes a really large bend, and those are important because they change what happens to the river system over time. So if we take a look a little bit more at meandering streams, again, this is where water is carving gravel, sand, maybe silt, and it's meandering through, cutting into that material. And so when it meanders around a bend, we call that a cut bank. So I'm on the diagram here on the upper right. On the upper left there, it says cuts into bank. So the material comes around the bend, cuts in, and removes material. And then on the next bend, it starts to deposit things on the inside. So we call that the point bar, where stream material deposits are being collected or left behind. Okay, and so over time, it builds up material on the inside and cuts material out on the outside. So the fastest flow ends up being on the outside of the bend where it's cutting. Okay, so it changes a little bit. As things develop and we get this really snake-like feature, the streams start cutting themselves off. So we have things called oxbow lakes, and then eventually meander scars, which I'll show you a picture of in a second. But as the stream gets super sinuous or super windy, the river starts to bump into itself, essentially, and it will take the straighter path. Okay, so that neck there in the cartoon A, it starts to get really, really narrow, and then it bumps into each other, and then it just takes the straighter path and leaves behind kind of a horseshoe-looking feature with some water in it, which we call an oxbow lake. And then eventually it dries up, becomes an oxbow swamp. Sorry. And then as the water evaporates, it leaves behind a meander scar. All right, so the meander scars look something like this. So there are these scars in landscape. So the river is still there, but you can kind of see those areas where there's some scarring. You can see old remnants of where the river once was. All right, looking at drainage patterns for the last thing here, we have 4 basic types. We have dendritic, radial, trellis, and rectangular. All right, we're going to start with radial drainage. This pattern is consistent with streams that radiate from a single point. Okay, so this is generally where we have a really high peak, and the radial drainage will drain from that center peak. Okay, so radiates outward in all directions. Whereas rectangular drainage is where we see a pattern of streams that display right angles. Okay, so it looks very rectangular, very blocky. We see this in things like limestone that are very blocky rocks. And so the joints break in that manner. And then with trellis drainage, these are small tributaries that feed a larger tributary. So when we have a lot of ridges that are connected, the drainage off of those ridges come to a center point between the ridges and form a larger drainage stream, if you will, and then it goes downstream continuously. And so it's kind of like a tree branch, if you will, is kind of what it looks like. And then dendritic drainage is a pattern that develops within something like a homogeneous rock, so a rock that's all the same, which has a shape that resembles a pattern that looks like a branch of a tree or veins. It's named after the dendrites in the brain because it kind of looks like that, I guess. But the dendritic drainage is something we would see at like a delta at the mouth of a river where it meets the ocean. So in summary for this video, surface water is water that flows on the surface of the earth. Braided streams are one type of stream that have a network of channels with high sediment load. Meandering streams curve through landscapes. We saw the point bar and cut bank and how an oxbow lake is formed. We have 4 drainage patterns: dendritic, trellis, rectangular, and radial. And then in your notes, I want you to answer this question: what 2 factors control the direction and pattern of stream drainage systems? All right, I'll see you guys in the next video.